Welcome to We Run This Town podcast, the official podcast of Gulf Winds Track Club, serving our area runners for almost 50 years. Our podcast is designed to support our runners in the Big Bend area, whether you're a beginning runner or an elite runner, offering education, entertainment, and encouragement on all topics running. Let's get running with today's episode. Welcome, everybody. Happy to be here. Another episode of We Run This Town, Gulf Winds Track Club official podcast. And we've got a wonderful conversation lined up for all of our listeners, all of our endurance athletes out there, runners, triathletes, ultra runners, cyclists, everybody. So before I get to our special guest today from Florida State University, just to give you a hint there, I do have a couple club announcements just to share. Summer's right around the corner, so remind everybody about our summer track series that we have coming up for the younger runners in our community. Also, we have the summer trail series. If you're interested in getting out in the woods, sign up for that because that starts in late May and gets going really good in June. And then we have our Smurfs running program. That's for youth as well, and that's free for our members. So go to gulfwinds.org, check out our summer programming. The other announcement, Best of Tallahassee is here for 2026. And, you know, we'd appreciate any of our listeners to go out and visit the Tallahassee Magazine website. Vote for us to be the best local podcast. There's a lot of good competition out there. We know that, but we would love to have you support us in that way. So vote for We Run This Town, Best of Tallahassee. All right, so let's get to our guest in our episode today. You know, all things fueling, nutrition, hydration, the science of running, maybe, if you will, I'll call it that. Welcome, Professor Ormsbee, or as I know you, Mike.
Yes, Mike,
Ormsbee.
that's perfect.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Or Dr. Mike. I mean, you probably got a few different, titles I can use, but we'll say Mike.
Well, it depends if you're my friend or my enemy.
That's true. And our kids go to the same school, so I can say Mike.
That's right.
Well, welcome, Mike. And Cooper Kework, right?
Yes, sir.
PhD,
Kework.
right?
PhD student, first year.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Happy
Nice
to be here.
Meet you. You know, I do my research on everybody. And, I'm a big mascot fan. I don't know if you are, but I'm a mascot fan. So you got Leo the Lion.
That's right. Piedmont.
Right, at
Go
Piedmont.
Lions. Come on.
You got Skid the Scribner, the thoroughbred.
The thoroughbred.
You know what I'm talking about.
I do.
Right? And then you got the Pirates,
That's it.
ECU, and last, the Jackrabbits.
The Jacks. That's it.
The Jacks,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, my high school mascot was a Barracuda. So, I'm proud of that one.
Has you got the tattoo yet?
No, just my,
I saw.
my spirit animal here. That's about it.
Yeah. Can't forget the Kennesaw State Owls. Got to give them a shout out.
Okay, and I missed that
Yep.
one. Go Owls.
That's all right.
That's
Go
right.
Owls. Come on.
So as we like to do, I'm going to give you each a moment just to kind of tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves, briefly, just kind of how you got into what you do. I think that's interesting to me and definitely to others. But give us a little background, and then we'll probably jump into talking about the Institute, ISSM, which we'll explain what that is. And then, again, we'll get into, for our listeners' benefit, talking about fueling and nutrition and hydration and sleep, body composition, as much as we can do today that y'all feel would benefit them, okay? But let's do the intros. So
That's
Mike?
great, man. Yeah, let's jump into it. I think I was like any other kid. I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. So, I was primarily focused actually on ice hockey.
Okay.
So I grew up outside of Philadelphia. My favorite team was the Philadelphia Flyers. I got heavily into basically all sports, but hockey was the focus.
Okay.
And then ended up going to Skidmore College to play hockey,
Okay.
and also get some education along the way. And it turns out I was better at education than was at hockey. I'm sitting there, I'm in class. I remember vividly, like in this lecture hall, and the professor was up there, and I was just enthralled. I was just like, oh my goodness, he was going through nutrition and how it supports our performance and just how important that was for us. And I was thinking, man, if I'm not in class, I'm reading this stuff. I'm trying to get bigger, faster, stronger myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was just finding if I wasn't made to do it, I was doing it anyway. And so it was just a real good sign that was probably where I should be at. And so I started focusing extensively on exercise physiology and nutrition, as well as business and entrepreneurship along the way. So those were like the foundational points for me in getting into performance nutrition. But in my time, that degree didn't exist. So we had to sort of create it. That's why I bounced around all those mascots that you were talking about. So I found myself a couple years later at South Dakota. Moved from New York to South Dakota, which was a big change for me, and worked with my mentor there, Matt Vukovic, who was just phenomenal. He came from like basically a big nutrition ex-phys background, but he was working at a company called EAS, which was called Experimental and Applied Sciences. And they had one of the largest lines of like, at that time, supplements in the protein world that existed. And then he left industry, came back to South Dakota State University, and I was like, I want to go learn from that guy because I really was interested in how the nutrition impacted performance along the way. And then fast forward, ended up going for my PhD along the way just to stay on that train for a while and finish out with a degree in human bioenergetics, which is basically nutrient use through exercise and how to fuel ourselves properly. So I had to sort of piece this all together along the way, and it's just, man, I just love it. It's just an awesome space.
Well, and you got to practice it too because you're an endurance athlete, right? You've done Ironman.
It shifted, man. It shifted a lot. So I was telling you, I was in ice hockey for a long time. Then I coached ice hockey for a while. And I was missing that competitive nature that I just had inherently. And so that moved me directly into what else could I be doing? And I showed up to South Dakota State. Matt Vukovic was like, there's your bike, let's go. I'm like, I've never, what do you mean? Like, am I jumping off something? And he's like, no, we're going for a ride. I'm like, all right, I've never done that. And so it was probably like a 20-mile ride, and I was exhausted. I was like, this is really hard. But I would see him leave work and go out riding. I'm like, well, I want to leave work. And so I got a bike. And they started me on my journey. I said, and I would just go with them. And so we started riding, and that got me into triathlon, and spent about 15 years doing triathlon at a very mediocre level, and I loved it. It was really, really great. And then actually more recently morphed into sort of more or less a jack of all trades, not excelling at any one thing, but I want to be the guy that you can call and say, hey, let's go for a run. I can hang for a while. Right. Let's go do a strength contest. I can hang for a while. Let's go play with the kids. I can hang for a while. But all of that stuff led me here to Florida State. And so I'm the director of the Institute of Sports Sciences and Medicine. I've been here at Florida State for almost 17 years. Oh. And then our institute is just thriving. We've got a whole discussion on that coming up. But that is how I landed here.
Awesome. Congratulations on those travels, But that's why I was interested in having you on the show, because I heard you at our triathlete club when you spoke, and when you practice it and you speak to it, that's a win-win, because you've got experience as an endurance athlete in doing these things. So,
well, for academics in general, like if you can't speak to how to apply your work,
right?
Like what are you going to do on Monday morning? Like if I can't tell you that, right, I think we've lost our way here. I love all types of science, but like what we do is very applied. Yeah. Which means that we can finish it. We actually get a lot of press from it because the things that we do are interesting to people. Yeah. And that's why we're here talking about it.
That's right. Thank you. All right, Cooper, what say you from an athletic, your interest initially was athletic training and
that's
sorts, right?
Yes, sir.
So tell us a little bit more about that transition for you and where you're at now.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The journey that I have taken to get here has definitely not been a linear path. Right. And it's kind of gone full circle. Like you said, I went into my undergrad studying athletic training. All through high school, I took the healthcare courses and things like that. So I've always been interested in the human body, how it works, science, and things like that. But lifelong athlete too, played tennis my whole life. And I went to Piedmont College to play tennis. Went in, played tennis for 4 years. And through some injuries I was dealing with in my right shoulder, some shoulder impingement, I spent a lot of time in the athletic training room. And I pretty much saw firsthand that was not the career path I wanted to take. Right. So spent too much time in the athletic training room, but ended up kind of feeling a little lost, like where do I want to go? What do I want to start studying? Things like that. And I was in a biology 1102 class, actually, and my professor really inspired me, super passionate about what he was teaching and things like that. So he actually pulled me aside after class and said, I want you to come do research with me. It was an honors research program. You get paid maybe $500 a semester, and I was like, anything to get some money, to help with that tuition.
Gas money, whatever.
So I said yes, and out of all the things it could have been, it was studying salamanders. So I spent the next 4 years of my life in the woods hunting salamanders, learning about evolution.
I'd
ecology.
love to go off on a tangent and talk about that, but I just can't.
That's right.
You're
that's right.
tempting me. I'm going to stay right here.
I'm going to have to control myself too.
That's right.
Sometimes, yeah. But no, through that process, I learned about just scientific research as a whole, and that you can make a career out of doing research and learning about the world around you. But through that process, I kind of realized where my passions were lying. It wasn't necessarily in ecology, evolutionary type of research. It was more about the human body, performance, athletics, because I always found myself talking with my friends and my family, super passionate about all those types of things, nutrition, performance. I coached tennis for a couple years at a country club, so all into that world. So towards the tail end of my master's degree, I realized, I need to make my career surrounded around what I'm most passionate about. And I felt very lost, so what did I do? I went to Google and started looking up exercise physiology programs. I was going through all different universities, Colorado State, Virginia Tech, ended up on Florida State's website, and I read up on the program description, and it stood out to me the most for sure. So I started looking through the faculty list, going through that, and I saw Dr. Ormsbee's little picture, smiling big, and I was like, he looks like the guy I should reach out to. It also said graduate director, so I was like, he probably has some good insight.
Right.
So I just cold emailed him, introduced myself, told him my story, sent him my CV. We hopped on a Zoom call and kind of hit it off, and the rest is history. So I moved to Tallahassee back in August.
Okay.
So I've been here for about 8-9 months, pretty much just been a sponge, just absorbing everything I can from Dr. Ormsbee, Dr. Kyle Smith, all my professors, all the other students who have had, a little bit more research experience than I have in this field, but it's been really great. I've kind of turned myself into a lab rat of my own. I've been getting into the endurance sports world, so I ran my first marathon back in February. Ran the Tallahassee Marathon. Thank you.
What was your time?
3:21:30. So
that's pretty
my
good.
My goal was to beat my Garmin, and I beat the Garmin prediction. So
congratulations.
Thank you. And I actually just completed my first half Ironman this past Saturday in Gulf Coast. So yep.
What was your time?
It was 4:47.
Wow. Sub-5 first time?
Yep. Shortened the swim, so it wasn't a full swim, but
He told me his initial goal was to beat my time, so I think he nailed that.
That was the initial goal. So
now we can start throwing around times here. I'm the host, but I'm a competitive host. So
exactly, right, yeah.
I may have run 3:03 last month of my last
Maybe
marathon.
that'll be my goal on my next one is to beat you.
No, we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But welcome to Tallahassee.
Thank you very much.
Right?
Yes, sir. Super happy to be here.
You're an owl, a lion, now you're a Seminole.
That's right.
Yes.
So it's kind of, it's funny. I've seen each step of the way, a small private school, smaller D1 school, and now I'm at a huge university. So it's cool to see all the different pathways.
Awesome.
Yep.
So let's take that right into the Institute. You mentioned the Institute, Mike, and, let's tell our listeners, first of all, if they want to know more about it, give them the exact website address, contact information, because I know we can't cover all of the things that y'all do. But briefly, just tell our listeners what the Institute focuses on, how you do it, how long you've been doing it there, just a little bit, and then just make sure they get that contact info because I know they want to go and learn more, especially the performance testing piece. I think that's really huge.
Let's certainly loop that stuff in. So the Institute itself was put together in 2010, and it was an interesting backstory. FSU is a kind of a Nike school, and Nike gave a donation to FSU athletics with a couple of stipulations on it. One was the state had to match it, and two was they needed a sports science facility. And so as things go, sometimes different projects progress at different rates, and when it came time to come look at their new Sports Science Institute, it wasn't quite ready yet. And so they quickly built this facility in 2010. And it built on the south side of the Mike Long track that people are familiar with. So if you go to the track at FSU, snuggled right there between all the athletics things and tennis and beach volleyball and softball and baseball, it's all right there. So it's a really great facility. We're sort of the west entrance to that side, and what we've been really fortunate to do is really just to try to gather attention as we keep going along. I think most people know us for performance nutrition, because that's primarily what I focus on. Mm-hmm. But we have 6 different lanes of research out of the facility. And so while we do a lot with performance nutrition, we do a lot also with sports science. We do a lot with clinical research like obesity and diabetes research, aging, specifically longevity, are 3 of our big areas. Mm-hmm. We added immunology. we added sports psychology, and we also added orthopedics and sports medicine.
Okay.
And so there's some connections at TOC. We have 2 research scientists now that work specifically in those spaces. So I just get the pleasure of like being able to learn about all these different spaces. I'm very lucky to be able to travel the country and the world to speak about the things that all the team members are working on. And it's just growing tremendously. I've been director there for 3 years now. Okay. And in these 3 years, we're really trying to expand our reach and what we're able to do. And in that process, while we're known as a research institute, it's the performance testing that people in the community will care about. And a lot of times people that will listen to this are the primary target of being subjects in our studies because we do a lot with aging, we do a lot with endurance as well. And I would imagine that like 1 out of 10 people listening to this have probably been into our facility to be in a study.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it for free or to get paid if you get into a study. Otherwise, there are testing services. So lucky for us, the equipment we have is top of the line. It's top notch. But you don't really usually get access to that stuff. But we were able to open up this testing services that Cooper's in charge of. He runs the show from top to bottom for the testing services. So you book an appointment with him, and you can come use any of our pieces of equipment in like a pay-for-fee model and get some of the best information you could get anywhere. And I can't tell you how many times people go somewhere else, don't like it or don't trust it, and they come to us to redo it. So it's a great place to go for people who are immersed in this field that study it day in and out for years and years and years and get you some really good information.
Yeah, I've always been curious. I've never done it. I need to. I did see, I guess, Dr. Zorn, right, is on the staff or part of the team in some way.
Yeah, medical oversight.
Okay, yeah. I did see her recently for gel.
Yeah.
So that's helped the old man out here a little bit. And then a couple others I recognize. But as far as the performance stuff, right, like VO2, like you're doing that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, mostly VO2 max testing, lactate threshold testing, body composition, so DEXA scans, bod pods, looking at fat percentage, lean mass percentage, things like that, bone mineral density. Okay. We also have equipment like the Alter-G or anti-gravity treadmill. So if you're ever dealing with some pain or injury, you can come in, zip you in the treadmill, take some weight off, up to 80% of your body weight.
Have you seen that before?
Get some cardio in. It's pretty sweet.
It's like running on the moon.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy feeling.
Sounds fun.
You're kind of like, imagine yourself as like almost the cork. Mm-hmm. So you kind of zip yourself into the top of this treadmill like kayaking almost.
Like you're wearing a leotard almost.
Okay. Yeah, zip so you zip and then the air blows up around you and unweights you. And so you can take, like you said, up to 80% of your body weight off. So if you have like a little knee pain, a little ankle pain, you're trying to walk, you're like, oh man, I don't know if I can run today, but you want to keep your cardiovascular fitness high. That's when people are coming in. We typically see people like 2-3 weeks out from a race and they're like, oh my gosh, I need that to recover, but I can't be still. And so they'll come try to do that. Or if you want more mileage but don't want all the pounding, then some people will use it as a training tool in that way. And the other way we've used it a lot, which is really kind of fun, is we'll take people who are struggling with body weight or maybe have been for years or they're new to endurance. And, as you know, all shapes and sizes can participate and do. And so somebody wants to say, what would it feel like to run if I was 10 pounds lighter, 20 pounds lighter, 30 pounds lighter, 40 pounds lighter? And we do the pre-post. We'll have you get on and run without doing anything. It's like, ouch, that hurts. A lot of, jamming of the joints. And then you unweight them. Okay. Simply wait. And you take 20% off. And you say, this is what it would feel like. And so it's a motivational tool as well to get people in that mindset of, wow, that's what it would feel like.
So your capacity for people to come in, I mean, how many appointments can you do a day or a week? Like if I wanted to do it and me and a group of people want to do it.
That's a good question.
Is it in and out every day or is it just once a month you have these things?
So for me, I'm usually running at least a couple tests a week, sometimes 1 a day, 2 a day. It kind of depends on the test that you're getting. But yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of times I have people who, them and another friend or a group of friends, they want to do a little fitness challenge, 6-month fitness challenge. They want some baseline data to know where they're at with the body fat, with the muscle mass, with the VO2 max. And then they want to post, intervention testing to track the improvements over time. So I see a lot of that. In terms of age groups and age populations, it's all over the place. We have FSU students coming in. They do get a 15% discount for the FSU students, so that's really cool. But we also see older populations, middle-aged, all over the place. So people.
What's your oldest?
I think the oldest was 80, 83 or 84. He came in for a VO2 max. We had him on the EKG. We had physician staff in there and everything. Nice. It's just phenomenal to see that level of dedication to fitness at that age, super inspiring.
So what is, at my age, what is a good VO2 number? What are we talking?
Yeah, so maybe we should back up for a second and just talk about what a VO2 is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if everyone's aware of that. It's a number that's thrown around in endurance all the time, and it's also thrown around a lot with longevity and health span research, but you're probably hearing about it on Instagram or whatever as you're doom scrolling at night. So it's basically a general marker of fitness. Particularly aerobic fitness. For a long time, we thought it was like the primary determinant of how well you're going to do in a race. It does have a huge impact, but it's maybe not the primary. And it's the ability to take in and utilize oxygen. I mean, it might sound a little strange, but everything's run on oxygen.
Got to have it.
And oxygen is what's going to help us to break down our fuels and eventually have the byproduct of both locomotion as well as heat generation. So we test that. The higher it is, the better in general. It does tend to go down with age. And even if you are training a ton, it'll probably go down slightly. But you have a chance to keep the line as best as you can to being linear before it starts to take a huge nosedive. Okay. And I would love to talk about it with muscle as well, because we do a lot with how strength training impacts endurance performance. But in general, even the loss of VO2 max or of skeletal muscle is a result of being sedentary, not a result of just aging alone.
Okay.
So that's a big distinction. People think it's just aging, but it's a combination of aging with not doing anything. So the listeners to this are way ahead of the game in keeping that general number higher. Now, there are some data that show it's really effective for potentially with longevity. So the higher the number, the better, the less chance of sort of dying off. Some people think that's kind of overhyped, but you can't sort of get out of the lane of the higher the better, if you can keep that at a good pace. So a general college student who's not training and is sedentary could probably be in the high 20s or low 30s. You get people that have crazy numbers that are really high, like in the high 90s, that are questionable if that's actually a thing. Lance Armstrong was kind of high 70s. If I were to do it now, I would be really happy with somewhere between a 48 and a 55, just knowing my own physiology. And you're probably somewhere 55 to 60, I would imagine, just with your fitness level. But that's not the end determinant, but it's a huge one that it's great to know. We had two types of people, right? You could come in, and some people say, I don't want to know my body fat. I don't want to know my VO2 max is terrible. So like that's person A.
Right.
And you have the other person who I think is a lot of the endurance community. I want data, I want data, I want data, I want the Garmin, I want the Whoop, I want everything I can. And this is a place to get data that you can trust, data that you can actually interpret and use either for your own training program or just so you know where you are. And I would suggest not doing this just like the older you are, to do it as young as you can, because then you have a reference value for when you felt your absolute best. Like, wouldn't you love to know what you were at 30? And then at 35, and then at 40, and you can do these benchmarks and just see along the way. It's like maybe you're having a rough spell of training or something. You're like, man, I wonder where I am compared to that. Yeah. And you have something to look. Same with blood biomarkers, same with DEXA scan, same with body fat, muscle mass, all of it. It's having some baseline is wonderful.
There's a lot there. So, physical activity, right? Again, seems common sense, but longer you can live longer if you're physically active, and especially as you start to age, right? I wish I'd have done it now. This whole marathon a month thing I'm doing, I wish I would have come and seen you before I started it, like January, to see what I'm like come December after 12 of them. But then I got to be honest with myself, I'm not that much into data. I've got the stuff, but sometimes I get a little lazy with data, So I appreciate what you said, where some people are like, I don't want to know my composition, I don't want to know my VO2. And is that a challenge to people coming to see y'all, as they they really don't want to know those numbers, or what is the apprehension to?
It's a problem before they come. If they've contacted Cooper, they're coming. So they want to see it already. So it's the conversations before that. It's these conversations. It's should I call? I kind of want to know, but what am I actually going to do with it? Or I don't want to pay that money, or whatever it is. So because there's a price to it.
Sure.
To get a really good test done.
Okay.
It is. I mean, everybody's different. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But I think it's a way to get those data that gets you a good benchmark.
Yeah.
And if you're at all interested in just a healthy lifestyle, it'd be good to have a few metrics that you know, because at some point, unfortunately, health will be the only thing you care about.
Yeah.
Just, I mean, in a way pulled back sense, like if we're having this conversation and you have a sore throat, what are you thinking about?
Right.
Not what to say next. Every swallow you take is awful. It hyper focuses you on what's important. And so like going back out to the bigger view, when you have this ability to have some metrics and you have something go awry, you know what you can come back to. So just having that benchmark, I think, provides peace of mind.
I think it goes into not just more like the prevention side of it, like taking the steps now, taking steps early before you spend the next 10, 20 years not being so active, and then you end up with some type of disorder, disease, or something that maybe is unreversible, or maybe, you could have prevented if you had some data, previously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big believer in preventive maintenance, right?
Right.
That's why we do oil changes in the car.
That's right.
I mean, right, to keep it running well. So, all right, last bit about the Institute real quick. Can I do this online? Can I make a reservation? Do I got to call?
Yes,
How do I reach
definitely.
you
So
if I want to do it?
Probably the best way would be to just Google Institute of Sports Sciences and Medicine at Florida State. You'll find our website, probably the first one that pops up. And then there's a link that you can click that will bring you directly to our interest form. You'll just fill out the form, name, email, when the best time to contact you is. And then for the listeners, they can get a 15% discount if there's a referral option. You can put other and just type podcast or the title of the podcast, and we'll give a 15% off discount for those listeners. And then, from there, our team, myself, will reach out to you, and we'll work around your schedule, what's best, find a good time to get you in, see what test is best for you, right? Because we don't want to just test for the sake of testing.
Right.
In terms of time, money. Also, a lot of the exercise testing is hard. It's not enjoyable during the moment, but afterwards it's useful. So
finding that threshold is not easy.
No, it is not. So we'll work with you and just make it personal to the individual.
Yeah, thanks for doing that for our listeners. And again, I hope they pay attention to that. 15% off. Mention the podcast. Mention Gulf Winds Track Club.
You can also just email us issm@fsu.edu. That's another way.
That's easy.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty simple space. I think it's worth describing that VO2 max. So you get on a treadmill. And then you can also do it on a bike.
Or on a bike,
We've even done it on a rower if you're a rower.
Okay.
But typically you'll get the highest value when you do it running, because there's just more muscular involvement.
Less peripheral fatigue.
But you get on a treadmill and it just keeps going up. And Cooper said he beat some of his metrics before. You're not going to beat the treadmill. The treadmill will win.
Eventually.
And so we try to test that. It should take somewhere around 15 to 25 minutes to get you to completion. The way that we run it, you do small stages at each level, and you can carry on going up either in speed or in grade. And so the point is to do maximal exertion till you can't go anymore. And so that part's not exactly pleasant, although there are some masochists in the endurance world.
That want to do
exactly.
that.
Yeah. We'll get the music going and stuff. We'll make it a good environment, bring the energy, cheer you on and stuff. So it's still a fun time, even though it's
hard
maybe
work.
a little painful.
But it's the outcome that you want.
That's
you want to know that number. You want to have something to compare it to.
Right.
And then it can help set some of your training as well. So we'll match heart rates to the different levels. So if someone says, are you running 70% VO2 max? You're like, I have no idea. But we know now what your heart rate is at 70% VO2 max.
That's
right.
Makes it easier for training loads and things. We also do lactate threshold testing. So if you and I have the same VO2 max, but you can run at a higher percentage of your lactate threshold, you're going to win every time. And just vice versa. If I can't handle that load because I feel like sort of that pain coming on, that means I'm going to lose. Even if we have the same VO2 max. And so that will help establish, okay, that's happening a little too soon. Now you need to be doing a little bit more higher intensity practice here to bump that number up, to run at a higher percentage of your VO2 max for longer.
I could be here, again, for 2 days talking about this stuff, especially because I think about heart rate and I think about, the watch and all the stuff it tells us. And some of it I believe and sometimes I don't. I mean, it's on my wrist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not what y'all do. your numbers are going to be a little better. But,
Right.
but let me transition to summer, because again, this is where we talk about all these things from nutrition, hydration, sleep, body comp. But a lot of our listeners are entering the hard months of summer, right? The dog days of summer if you're a baseball fan, right? So it's training in the heat, right, for that fall marathon or that end of year triathlon. So that was one of the other reasons I wanted to have y'all in, before we get to the summer, so we can talk about, all right, what's out there today, best practices, trends, research on those categories of nutrition, hydration, sleep. When you think about our athletes here local that are about to go through those hard months, right? What are you seeing, and what should they be considering? I know right now carb and protein thing is just all over the place, right? High carbs. And you look at endurance athletes and the numbers they're turning in, the marathon, the sub-2 marathon for the first time.
Solid.
I mean, shoes got something to do with it. But so I wanted to give you all an opportunity to tell our listeners about those categories of nutrition and hydration and what are you seeing in the world today?
It was really good points. I think we can address it overall and then maybe sort of hyper-focus on summer, because some of it you need two conversations for. In general, the biggest thing we're seeing, let's attack the carbohydrate thing. So Saltway raced that in incredible speeds. We're looking at 4:13 to 4:22 or so per mile for the marathon. It's insane. Okay. And his coach was saying he was taking about 115 grams per hour of carbohydrate. His breakfast beforehand was quite modest. He said it was just slices of bread and some tea and some honey. Yep. And so that was beforehand. And so he knows exactly what affects his gut. He knows exactly, there's nothing special there. It was just probably his usual practice. And then his coach said 115. He was using the Morton hydrogel that has sort of that time-release carbohydrate, which is a whole other discussion if we want. But in general, carbohydrates at a very high load. Traditionally, sports nutrition practice started way lower than that. Back in like the early 1900s in the Boston Marathon, there were some data actually. It was observational, but they saw these people finish the marathon, look terrible. The way they described it was just like, oh, these racers had like their angst in their face and they had terrible
I've been there.
disposition. No. And they said, so the next year they just gave them a sugary drink and looked at them again and said, oh, they look better. So like that was the start of all this stuff. And certainly like as anyone has tried to do that without any fuel and a long distance and then some fuel, there is something that's happening. And the carbohydrate story went from about 30 grams per hour to 60 grams per hour to 90 grams per hour, and now 120 grams per hour. But I think the biggest thing for the listener is that's elite. Mm-hmm. Those are elite individuals. And so we got to be honest with ourselves. Are we elite?
Right.
And so the numbers of getting carbohydrate that high demand quite a few things. One, you got to practice the heck out of it. It can totally mess your gut up if you tried that without a lot of practice. It's hard to do. You got to be able to stomach it. You got to make sure how much fluid needs to come with it or not to be able to digest that and hold it down. So there's a lot of things that have to go into practicing that. There was some research from a guy named Asker Ukendroop's group. He does a lot of work with different Peloton groups, like through the Tour de France athletes and such. And he was also an academic researcher. But when they figured out that if you took more than glucose, if you took glucose and fructose at the same time, because they go through different receptors to get the sugar into your bloodstream. So the SGLT1 receptor and the GLUT5 receptor bring in these carbohydrates in different ways. So they figured instead of jamming up the one turnstile, we can go through another door. And now we get more sugar into the system with no more GI upset. So that's why every over-the-counter drink will have glucose and fructose in it. Okay. They call it multi-transportable carbohydrates. So that's when they could actually get these numbers higher. But the practice of eating that many carbohydrates, if you're not elite, is probably way overkill.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like completely. And there are data now that are controversial. Actually, one of the researchers in our group has published some of the data on the opposite, having essentially very, very little carbohydrate, like 10 grams an hour, like totally opposite of that.
Replacing it with what?
Just to maintain the blood glucose levels, kind of arguing that it might not necessarily be you need super high numbers of carbs
Yeah.
more so just to keep that blood glucose level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's arguing like what's the cause of fatigue? Is it central from your brain or is it peripheral from your muscles? And so there's definitely different boxes here. But in general, if I'm going to summarize the whole state of literature in one fell swoop, which is probably the wrong thing to do, if you're elite and you're running at those very, very fast levels, then I would try to push that carbohydrate higher. I would. But if you're not, if you're an age grouper, even if you're just a decent age grouper, or if you're slow, which is fine, you can totally cut that back. And then you probably have less of an issue of anything hanging around like diabetes risk or too much blood sugar at all times, insulin management.
I'd also like to add on from a, say, broke college student perspective, it's not cheap to buy gels and to buy powdered carbohydrates. Like that stuff adds up for training. It's another thing to think about, pricing and buying gels, all that. So it's another reason to potentially not go crazy with the carbs if we're not super high level elite athletes.
It's interesting over the years, marathon training, like for me, I remember we used to do my threshold runs on Saturdays and I wouldn't eat in the morning because the Hanson brothers or something I read said, hey, you can train your body to run hard, low fuel. So on race day when you are fueling, and I was like, I don't know if that's smart to do, but I did it. Seemed like it helped me, but you still got to practice with those foods at some point.
Yeah.
Because you can't wait till race day to start putting all those gels in your mouth or the beans. I mean, we got so many things today, right? We got, what's the candy now everybody's eating?
Nerds clusters,
yeah,
whatever.
Nerds. I'm like, you got to eat 15 of them.
That's right.
To get a decent amount of something out of them. And
Speaking
I'm like,
on what you said, I have a friend who was training for the Tallahassee Marathon, and they trained mostly without carbs, kind of like you're saying, like maybe doing a lot of fasted runs and things like that. It's almost like shifting that fat oxidation curve to the right to where we're burning fats versus carbohydrates and pushing that to the right. But they started introducing some carbs closer to the race just for the gut aspect and stuff. Right. But they trained mostly low carb or no carb, and they think that it helped them, So it's kind of definitely person dependent,
Isn't that, I guess, the key to it, right? For nutrition, should you try multiple things, what works for you, because there is no magic pill for everybody.
Yeah, individualized nutrition is clearly what we have to think about. And I can give you 50 studies, but if you do it and you're like, that hurts my gut, then don't do that. You got to find something that works for you. So I think it is super individual.
Yeah.
On that carbohydrate story, like, I don't know that we want to push one way or the other. I'll just say the scope of the literature and like what you're describing from Louise Burke and John Hawley's group, there's Australian researchers who did that work. That model works, but if you only do it that one way, you're basically upping your ability to use fat as a fuel, but you're decreasing your ability to use carbohydrate as a fuel. Okay. So if you don't go back and forth between how you fuel in practice, you'll have trouble you could have trouble on race day. And so that's one. I like that method. You train your body in this fasted state to use those fuel sources. But on that particular training session, I would pull way back on the intensity.
That's right.
Okay.
And then when you're doing the much higher sessions, that's when I would fuel intentionally with more carbohydrates on those higher intensity days. That way you're sort of getting the mix of both sides of the benefit for what we're calling metabolic flexibility, the ability to use different fuels under different task demands.
Okay. And are you surprised to see, though, like even in our running community, how many people still are out there doing half marathons that don't fuel, that feel like maybe they can go out without, having those gels or things? Because I've seen it. Like we talk while we're running and things, some people just seems like, I'm good. I ate a good meal. What is it? The night before I had pasta and,
the carb load.
The carb load, right? Which is a whole myth anyway, right? I don't want to eat a plate of pasta the night before my race. I don't know about you, but you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like there's still some people out there that think, I don't need this much fuel.
Years ago, I went to watch the Ironman Florida. So we were over there in PCB, had some friends who were racing it. It's before I got into it. I went back at the midnight, the 11 to 12. It's like the very end. And I was so inspired by that I wrote a column for the Democrat that was called The Final Hour. And we described what that experience was like. But the reason I bring it up is because the people crossing the finish line at that time have wildly different shapes, sizes, and body compositions. And you can have someone crossing that line that looks ridiculously fit well behind someone who looks like they're not ridiculously fit. So we all have these different body shapes. There's different. What I love is the attendance and the participation in physical activity. In this case, half marathon type activities is going way up. And it also means different fitness levels are doing those things. But because of that, the speed at which you're racing is wildly different. So if you're running at a really top pace because you're trained enough to do it, where I'm running at basically a moderate pace the whole time, our fuel needs are different. The way we have to fuel that is different. So I'm not surprised you can finish a half marathon with very little fuel, because if you're going slow enough, you don't really need it. You've got all the stores for it. It's really, really at the highest end of exercise exertion for the people who are really pushing it is when we're talking about these much higher carbohydrate loads.
Okay. We'll be right back. Hey, friends. I've been a member of Gulf Winds Track Club now since, I believe, 2007. You know, and I became a member is because I was running 1 mile a day, 2 miles a day. And I owe everything to Gulf Winds Track Club to get me to where I am today as a runner. The fellowship, the friendships, the relationships, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, it's also the learning. I got to train with others. I got to ask a lot of questions. I got to witness growth in others, and all because of the club. I've had lifelong friends, and we've traveled to places and done special races, and now my entire family, we're all members of Gulf Winds Track Club. So I invite you to visit gulfwinds.org, become a member too. Now back to the show. So from the nutrition side, you know, carbs the thing, okay, great, but individualistic prep, right, is the main thing in practice.
Yeah.
And figuring out what you need to fuel.
Yeah, and you brought up protein earlier too. Protein's a big topic that we've studied for ages, and I love it. It's a great place to begin any conversation with either endurance or strength training or just general fitness and longevity. And it's actually how I anchor my plate. It's how I would tell you to anchor your plate as well. Before you even get into the carbs fat discussion, I would anchor your protein. That means that every time you eat, I would be thinking about where is my protein source? How much protein is it? For several reasons. And actually some very new research came out. We were just looking at it before we came over here, where they were looking at the protein needs of endurance athletes, and it looks like it's higher than strength training athletes. There's so much damage that occurs in some of the training and racing that the needs actually go up. And by the way, like just to sort of set the backdrop here, the recommended allowance for protein for ages was 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. And that existed for years and years and years. And it just changed. And it just went up under the new administration. So that got bumped up to 1.2 to 1.6 is basically what they're recommending now, which I'm very happy with. They changed this. We've done so much research showing that's probably the sweet spot to be in. But for endurance athletes, it looks like it's even higher. And so maybe it's a nuanced little win you might have out of going north of that 1.6 grams of protein per kilo of body weight. But it looks like it's higher than that. It's like probably 1.9, sorry. Okay. And then on your recovery days is when you want to have the most protein. So not necessarily on the training day. A lot of people will say, I'm on a recovery day. I'm going to pull back on everything I eat. Anchor that protein high. Anchor that protein high, because that will help with all the recovery things that are going, not just muscularly. You got to remember proteins are involved in our hormones and all of the tissues that are turning over, everything. And so that's a really important distinction. And that is a place where you can anchor your plate, anchor your day, make sure you're getting the right total daily intake. And then I would just move my carbohydrates around higher or lower based upon the intensity of my training and the purpose of that. And really what my goal is from doing any of this. Is it to perform? Is it a body comp? Is it just mental health? There's many different outcomes you can have.
Yeah. No, I remember protein has always been that recovery discussion, right? But even more so on the front end in the right proteins, I guess. Is there a wrong protein? Whatever. Yeah. But, you know, I mean, I'm a chicken guy. Like, I like dark meat, you know, chicken, but I also celebrate my races. And after the race, I usually go get, you know, a nice ribeye or something, because I don't do that before the race. You know, just for other gut reasons and things. But protein's a newish thing in that regard from an endurance athlete is what you're saying now, right?
Research it's just being looked at a little bit more closely. The product when I was racing that I was using had a 4-to-1 ratio of carbohydrates to protein. And at that time, people were like, why are you using that? Well, and it's not the most popular one. And it's like, I'm not winning anything, and I want to start recovery while I'm racing.
So you drank that while you were racing?
Yeah, I drank it while I raced, and then I drank it afterwards, and just because I knew sometimes you got to be honest with yourself a bit. And so it worked for me, and it was totally fine. And I don't know that protein wasn't in the discussion, but like normally carbs dominated the endurance discussion for sure.
Right.
In fact, I'm going to the Endurance Sports Summit coming up this summer to talk just about this, protein for endurance athletes, as well as how to use strength training for better endurance performance, which is also another area where protein would also be included. So it's an interesting place to go. Sure. What is funny though, you see like the halo effect of protein. So every product that exists now has like a version with protein, and so there's like, pasta with protein, and, everything has a little extra. And so you totally don't have to buy into that. I like it because it helps me like get more protein for my kids. They'll have pasta, but if I give them a little bit of protein, it helps out that where they won't eat some of the other stuff. But in general, yes, protein's back in the discussion. It should anchor your plate. I would aim. So this is what I recommend. I recommend shooting for, we'll put it back to pounds so people understand. We'll get about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Okay.
Most people miss that. They don't hit it quite on target, and because they miss, they land right at where we need them, somewhere that 1.6, 1.8 range, which is right where I want you. I'd rather you miss high than miss low. So if I say eat 1.6 or 0.7 grams per pound, and you miss low, now you've maybe missed the mark entirely. So I aim high, and that way, if you do miss, you're hitting right where I want you to be.
Anchor your plate with protein. That's going to be my main takeaway. I'm going to do a hashtag on that every post.
For sure.
Thanks,
for
man.
sure. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about hydration. Because I know we can talk even more about the nutrition side, but let's talk about the hydration side. Again, talk about products. So many different products that you can drink, from Tailwind to Hoist. I used Hoist now. Element. I mean, there's everything. And if you can combine a little thing about the summer in there, because I know sometimes it's a separate question or discussion, but what do you think there on hydration? Where are we at for endurance athletes?
Well, we were discussing it earlier, and I think most people it seems most people definitely go over their recommended sodium intake just from their diet alone. So unless you're really working hard, working out in the heat, and losing a lot of sweat, you probably don't need to be taking an electrolyte supplement, But now we're talking for our listeners here, endurance athletes and things like that, especially in the summer heat and things like that. When you're sweating a lot, and when it comes to sweat, you got to think about sweat rate. So how much are you losing in terms of just total volume, but also sodium loss. So how concentrated is your sweat? So some people are super salty sweaters. Some people aren't, like you'll see some people finish a workout and they'll have sweat deposits all over their clothes. I'm not one of those people, but some of my tennis teammates, I look over after their match and their green jersey it's now covered in white,
Right.
So it's kind of person dependent, just like the supplement or the nutrition we were talking about too.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, talk about summer heat here. It's insane.
Yeah. A little bit of humidity once in a while too.
Once in a while.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you an example. We were able to do sweat testing with football a couple years ago in their summer camps. So now you got like pads included, and it's so hot. And it's a different sport, obviously, but they were concerned about some of the players that might have been excessively sweating, and so they had us come out to basically track them for a whole practice, give them exactly what to drink the whole time. And even under those conditions where you already have some people worried about you, they're sweating a ton, and we do all the analysis, all but one of the people we looked at needed any type of intervention. They just had to drink more. I mean, they're losing a ton of weight in their practice, like 16 pounds, like in one practice. So it's a ton. So they have to replace that. But there wasn't a mismatch between the sodium and the drink intake. So they were still matching it pretty well. With people who are healthy, one of the coolest things, there's a really cool figure I wish we could show visually, but if you're healthy and you drink a ton of sodium water, you're going to end up urinating out a ton of sodium. And then if you're on the opposite and you don't drink any, you're going to retain as much sodium as you can. I mean, our bodies are awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I love about this stuff. Yeah. It's like incredible. And so in most people, that's the case. So it has to be exactly what Cooper said, which was very long, where you're sweating a ton. So this is endurance. Yeah. And the summer humidity heat that we have here. Now, the big myth here is that electrolyte supplementation will stop cramping. Okay. That's a myth. You cannot replicate that. And I have colleagues who've tried to replicate cramps, and under the same conditions where I electrically stimulate your calf, for example. And even under the same electrical stimulation, I can't make it cramp every time. And so it's hard to do research on it. And so while electrolytes, if they're completely deficient, could be involved, drinking it or having pickle juice or whatever is not necessarily going to fix it. So there's that.
Well, they sell a lot of pickle juice, so be careful. I think you're going to hurt their revenue right now. But say that again. So electrolytes cannot prevent cramps.
If you're completely deficient in electrolytes and you're really underhydrated or dehydrated, that could increase the chance that you will cramp. However, if you are hydrated normally, then that cramp isn't going to be fixed by having more water or sodium added to the mix.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that they got their nutrition wrong or hydration wrong because they're cramping, when in reality, you went into the race, and because it's a race, you're going a little harder than you ever have, and you're a little more competitive because the guy next to you is right there. And so you're just muscular, not used to that effort that you're putting out. And so typically it's an effort that's higher on a game day situation,
right,
where you're just not used to that particular muscle contraction.
It's interesting you say that, because I'm reflecting now on some of my college tennis experience, and I'm thinking of some of my buddies who would cramp almost every match, or if it was a super high intensity match, they'd be on the floor cramping in between sets. That never happened in practice, but in the matches, when it's, they're working harder, they're fighting for every single shot. That could be playing into it for sure. So it's interesting to think about like a mental aspect too.
Yeah,
for sure. But I'll tell you this, speaking of the mental aspect, if you think it helps, do it.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of people say, do you like this supplement that I'm taking? I'm like, what are you taking it for? Okay, is it working? And you say, yeah, I think it's doing X, Y, and Z. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
As long as it's not hurting you.
That's right.
Then the mental aspect of the placebo effect is completely real. It makes this kind of research that we do incredibly difficult because there is such an impact. So we have to design studies really well with supplements especially to try to tease out all these other things that might happen. And now in a lab, I can control all that. That all goes out the window on a race day when I can't control your wind and how excited you are and what other things are going on around you that can change the situation. So, with all of the research, it's good to sort of bundle it together, figure out what's the best evidence to try, and then it's an N of one. It's your experience with it and how you can dial that in for yourself.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I love this stuff. When I think about hydration for myself, it's always tried to be consistent with it, right? Like every day. Water every day, getting enough water, just being hydrated, because I know getting into it early on, I thought, I got to get hydrated the day before, right? And people try to do that last minute, almost like the carb load, where the day before the race, they're really trying to drink it up, right? Drink as much as they can. That's not the best way to do it either, because you can be overhydrated, right?
That's a really good other point. I'm glad you brought it up. So there's a book called The Lore of Running. I don't know if you heard of that. The Lore of Running was a really good book, and it was followed up by a book called Waterlogged, and they're just completely different perspectives on drinking and all this. And so the thought was basically this: if you finish, the top people who finish, if I were to test anything, sodium, water taken from blood or urine or whatever, you're probably a little bit dehydrated at the end of that race. You're racing full out. You're sweating a ton. You can't take in as much as you need to. And so the thought was, do we really need to be drinking so much? Or is it somewhat purposeful? We're losing a little bit of body weight, so we're able to maintain a fast pace the whole time. And even at the end, if you're a little bit dehydrated, as long as it's not hurting you, you can recover from that. So there's this really interesting dichotomy between drinking enough, or do we purposefully not drink a ton so that we actually lose a little body weight during the course of the race and it gets easier towards the end. So there's pluses and minuses to both of those types of approaches, but there are data that if you overhydrate with water alone, with no extra electrolytes built into it, that's very dangerous. It's most dangerous because you're filling your body with water without the extra electrolytes, and it creates this condition called hyponatremia, low sodium. Low sodium messes with nerve conduction. Low sodium messes with your brain. That can kill you. It has killed runners in races. Yeah. The people that can get affected by that are hot, humid summer races and people who are not winning the race. It's usually the middle line to slower people. They've got more time to drink more only water, and they just crush water the whole time, and that creates a lot of problems. So in a hot, humid summer race, even if you don't need it, I might have something in my drink because it's probably not going to hurt me, and it'll prevent this from happening, this hyponatremia, which can be deadly.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm glad we touched on that. Salt tablets, right? Even that, right? Just throwing in a couple of the salt tablets in the water, or a Propel packet, or it's just something with some electrolytes in it.
Yeah, the other piece is it makes you potentially a little bit thirsty, and if you're someone who doesn't drink a lot, it might make you drink a little more, which could be good.
Yeah, and I've been on the other side of it. When I did my 100-miler, I had the hoist the first, I don't know how many miles, and then I started getting that tacky, and so then I went to water, fixed it, like 7-10 miles I did water, but then I felt a little thirsty. So then I did some Propel after for the next, whatever. But just paying attention to your body and what's happening and trying to, manage it the best that you can,
For sure. And the research that actually looks at hydration and planned hydration are consistent. Where as long as you have a plan, you end up in a better spot at the end of your race. So they do like unplanned, just go drink as you want, blah, 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 versus every X kilometers you're having something and a certain amount. And if it's a planned hydration strategy, that has won in all of their science that I've seen on it. So just have a plan.
Yeah, well said. Thank you. Especially coming the summer. So let's talk a little bit about sleep, right, too, because training impacts all training, whether you're doing weight training, whether you're doing triathlons, running, rucking, walking, whatever you're doing. But I know you focus on some of that stuff too. So for our listeners, as they approach this training season, talk about sleep.
I love it.
Wake up, Mike. Come on.
Sleep's been an amazing story for our lab. So a lot of the work we do is around pre-sleep feeding.
Okay.
And what that does, like literally eating a protein bolus before you go to bed. We've done 15 studies on it where we're looking at metabolism and recovery and body composition and all these changes over time. And in our early days, I would get comments back from the reviewers reading these papers, and they'd be like, "Did you measure sleep?" Like, I wasn't interested in sleep. I know I didn't measure sleep. So we started adding it because we needed to, and we started just tracking that first paper evaluations. Like, okay, how many hours did you sleep? Was it normal or not normal? And then we got better techniques. Then we started doing some of the trackers and some of the things we had access to from technology side. And so now we do a lot of sleep studies where our primary aim of different things around this pre-sleep feeding context isn't necessarily recovery or performance, but more what does it do to your sleep? And it's really controversial. So if you were to open your Instagram and scroll around on sleep, you'll see people telling you never to eat before bed. You'll see people saying do eat before bed, and the whole nutrition world gets really confusing.
Right.
The primary reason is we all eat, so everybody thinks they're an expert. And the analogy that you give is like, if you take a flight on a commercial airplane, are you now a pilot? No.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to convince somebody that they don't know what they're talking about when they had an experience that worked for them.
Right.
Hey, I do this. It works. Everyone's got to do this. So I get it. I understand kind of why they're doing it. So anyway, we got into this sleep space, and it's definitely like in triathlon, you'd say nutrition is like the fourth activity. I'd say, sleep is certainly maybe not. It's certainly one of the five.
Yeah.
But sleep has got to be dialed in. I mean, anybody logically knows just from being a human, if you have a really bad night of sleep, it completely wrecks your next day.
Right.
The ability to think, the ability, your mood state, all of it. And then there's tons of research to back it up where you make poor food choices, you do things you wouldn't normally do, you're sluggish, your cognitive ability stinks. And you do that over an extended period of time, as you would ask like any new mother, for example, it messes with you. It really can make things problematic. So with that said, sleep is foundational. It has to be a priority. There are some things that can impact that to be better or worse. We know things like technologies and phones and these types of things do make a difference. There's just like structured hydration. If you have a structured sleep plan, that usually is the first thing a sleep specialist will tell you to do. Lock in a sleep time, lock in a wake time. within 30 minutes if possible, can keep that consistent even on weekends.
Yeah.
So that structure helps a lot. Having a routine in the nighttime helps a lot. So those things are really cool too. But one of the coolest things that we found just this year, one of our doctoral students, Brett Cross, finished a study on acute sleep deprivation. So he brought people in the lab under two types of people: fit people and sedentary people. And then he gave them both acute sleep deprivation for several nights. And in that case, if you were fit, you were protected from some of the deleterious effects of acute sleep deprivation compared to the person who's sedentary. And so that got all of us thinking. And so we sort of frame it as exercise being the biological apology for poor lifestyle choices. And it just is really forgiving for many of the poor lifestyle choices that people make. So fitness helps protect. However, it still messes with you. You just kind of are a little bit protected in a short period of time. If you carry that on for a long time, I think you'll be in trouble.
Yeah, and I think with the sleep, more taking a practical approach. Just like he was saying, the routines are super good. There's just things you can do to create a better sleep environment. So for me personally, every night I bump the AC down just a little bit, get it cold, get the fan going, get the blackout curtains in my room. Have blue light glasses from Amazon, like $20. Just little things like that I think you can do. Yeah. Even if it's just helping even a little bit, I think all those things can accumulate. For me personally, I wake up to pee in the middle of the night, so I'll stop drinking an hour or two before bed, and then I don't wake up to pee. So now I'm actually sleeping through the night consistently. So there's like little things you can look at and play around with to optimize the sleep, because it is so important.
It's a plan.
And of course for recovery, I mean, it's huge for recovery. So if you're an athlete and you're training, during your training block, you want to be able to recover after those super high intensity workouts. So, you can hit another one in a day or two. So optimizing the sleep is just huge.
Yeah. Nap. I wish I could take more naps during my trainings, right? No, I think, again, takeaway is the plan and the structure. Whether it's nutrition or hydration or sleep, have a plan that typically works best. And again, I'm with athletes today. We understand how important routines and habits are, right?
Yeah, there's a quote from the King Richard movie, Serena Williams' dad. It's if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. So planning, hydration, sleep, fueling, nutrition, all that stuff.
All of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I tell you, when I travel, I'll bring with black electrical tape, and I will tape up every light that's in there, from the highest ceiling little light on the fire detector to the TV light.
100%. Cover the computer, little lights.
I cover all that stuff.
The clocks in hotels, man.
Yeah, that thing gets
I
unplugged.
unplug it. Yeah, because I can't sleep.
get the little white noise machine going.
I do white noise too. All right, so let me bring us in for a landing. Hey, you mentioned airplane earlier, so
let's go.
I'm being a pilot. So, for each of you, one last best piece of advice across those lanes of hydration, nutrition, sleep, and the other things that we didn't get into. But, another last takeaway for our listeners when it comes to those things, what would it be?
Well, I'm pretty new to the endurance training aspect. I've only been doing it since September. What I've learned the most is probably the consistency aspect. Consistency with fueling for the harder workouts, consistency with the electrolytes, consistency with your diet. Probably trying to focus on fueling enough. I think that's one thing that I've realized I was probably under fueling for a lot of my workouts and things like that. Just in general, I eat a good breakfast, eat a pretty okay lunch, and then come dinner, I wasn't eating enough. And I think that could be impacting some of my performance and overall just how I feel throughout the day. So focusing on fueling enough, consistency with the things we talked about, and then probably planning your workouts, planning time management type of thing. Yep. I think that's huge for just overall success in life, but also just with the training,
Yeah. Thanks, Cooper.
Yeah.
Mike?
I love it.
Professor?
What made me think here is, you ever been in a scenario? So one time I gave this talk. It was called "Why Am I a Fat Triathlete?" I don't know how well it went over, but this is a scenario. You're going for a bike ride, and you say you're going for 3 hours. However, that includes I'm pumping up my tires in my garage, going out to the stop sign, I'm going on the trail, heading down St. Mark's, but I got to stop at all the stoplights and everything along the way. Then I got to wait at the trailhead for all my friends to show up. And now I'm 45, 50 minutes into my 3-hour workout, but I haven't done anything yet. And then I've pre-fed with my pasta because I thought I needed that. Then I'm eating candy the whole way down the trail, but I have to stop everywhere. Then I get down to the end of the trail and decide I need a good lunch at the hut down there. And so you eat again. And then you have candy the whole way home. And then you go back home. And now it's been 3 hours, but you've eaten far more than you've actually expended in that example. Right. And so what I think people need to take away is to be realistic with how your training is. So just because you're out there for a while doesn't mean you're training through that whole time, and that will dictate how I would recommend you fuel. Okay. How do we fuel? Be honest with yourself about that. So from a big picture, anchor your protein, try to get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. You probably will just miss and come right where we need you. Then rotate your carbohydrates based on the need for that day. Recovery day, drop them down. High intensity interval day, put them up. Long, slow ride on purpose like that, okay, have some, but not a ton. And so, and this is probably not for the elite. This is for the most everyday person. And then along that way, I would hydrate, but I wouldn't be having tons and tons of sodium. I might have one of my options has some extra electrolytes in there, and that'll help me fuel just fine. And with all of that perspective, I want to have a little data. So I'd make sure I did a little pre-testing before I get out there, measure some things at the Institute, and that way you have something to compare to. Because if you don't track progress, what are we doing?
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
Well said.
Yeah, you got to have some type of data. And so the last thing is that we like to say the best ability is availability. And if you are hurt or injured or you cannot go, you've lost out entirely. So you've got to take care of your sleep. You've got to take care of your food. You've got to take care of your hydration so that you are available to train tomorrow. Because it's not always about just the race. It's don't you want to be not sore or at least sore enough to be able to go again tomorrow? Yeah. And that's what us in this endurance or just fitness lifestyle, it's all about. It's consistency over time, as Cooper mentioned, and just staying in the game.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I want to toe the start line, right? We got to get there. We got to get to that start line. Thank you both. It's been awesome.
You're welcome.
Again, we could be here for another couple hours, but for our listeners, visit the Institute, reach out to Cooper and Professor Mike and let them help you out and fuel and hydrate, get some good sleep. But it's been a pleasure to have you on the We Run This Town podcast. I look forward to seeing you two again soon. Y'all take care.
Thanks, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of We Run This Town podcast, the official podcast of Gulf Winds Track Club. For more information on the club, whether that be membership, upcoming races, or to listen to more episodes, visit gulfwinds.org. Remember, whether you're an elite runner or a beginning runner, together we run this town.